Welcome everyone to session 3. The session 3 today is about the steady core, moving from the reactive chaos to strategic architecture.
हमारे होटल में आपका स्वागत।
एक बात याद रखिए, हमारे ताज में guest is God.
So, we are not going to begin in the boardroom. We begin in the corridors of Taj Mahal Palace Hotel in November 2008. It was a night of unprecedented terror and a complete collapse of every known system. There was chaos everywhere, a nightmare nobody ever anticipated. It was a phenomena that defied all traditions, all logic. Staff members, waiters, chefs, housekeeping, they were facing the ultimate fear, the instinct to flee for their own safety. Yet, they chose to stay. Why? Because they identified with the concept that guest is God over their own survival.
एक बात याद रखिए, हमारे ताज में guest is God.
This was not just about bravery. It was a display of the steady core, choosing equilibrium over chaos. And that is what we are going to talk today. Taj incident was all about resilience. As I said, the crisis that nobody anticipated and the instincts that everybody had to flee at that particular time. Amidst that chaos, the staff, ordinary staff, showed extraordinary behavior. So they chose equilibrium over chaos, which implied that each of us can rise to extraordinary limits if we follow a systematic process.
In continuation to spectator versus actor, which we discussed in our last session, today we take the reference again from Bhagavad Gita, Shloka 2.38, which explains equanimity in opposites. It reads, Sukha dukhe same kritva labha labho jaya jayo tato yudhyaya yujasa navam papa mavapasyasi, which means treat pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat, all as equal, and then perform your duty. In this way, you remain free from disturbance. It seems very simple. Why? Because Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna to do so. Was he asking Arjuna to become emotionless? When he was lost, he was in dilemma in Kurukshetra before the battle starts. He gives a deep interpretation to Arjuna. He's asking him to become emotionally balanced. Why? Because life will always come in pairs of opposites. Happiness, sadness, profit, loss, success, failure. These are not problems. These are the nature of life. It has to happen this way. Coin has two sides. We don't suffer. What is the real problem? We don't suffer because of situations. We suffer because we cling to one side and resist the other. If we can accept success, we should be ready to accept the failure as well. If we hope for the best, we must be prepared for the worst. But the problem is, we cling to the hope, but we resist the problem. If we can relate one example, when success comes, we get attached. But when failure comes, we feel broken. But both are temporary. Nothing is going to stay forever. Everything has to pass on. And your mind is constantly saying, I want only happiness, I want only success. And this is the state of mind of Arjuna, where his mind is not letting him see any success, any happiness as the outcome of the battle of Mahabharata. But Krishna is saying, accept both and stay balanced. As in our last session, we had seen the observer effect. The observer watches both pleasure and pain. We have to be the observer within. As a self, we need to observe both the things without getting lost in either. Next time, any situation happens, see this example of Taj we have taken, which is a very panic situation where the whole country suffered. The whole country knew what is 26/11, what is 9/11. People just cannot forget. Even the generations that took birth later than those period, they also know the history. So next time something happens like this, instead of reacting, pause and ask, can I stay balanced in this moment? Peace does not come when life is perfect. Peace comes when your response is balanced. Peace does not come when life is perfect. Life comes automatically. It is not in your hand, it is not in your control. So you can be at peace only when your response is balanced. And this is the law of opposite. Whenever success comes, failure has to follow. Whenever gain comes, loss has to follow. So these are the variables. And in order to accept that, we need to remain calm, remain balanced. Then the effect will not be taken by us inside.
For a Sikh, for a Sardar, the pagdi is something that is ultimately important. But the Sardar was prepared to take off his pagdi just to ensure that the lady over there is comfortable. What does this mean? This takes us to the next shloka, that is 2.47. कर्मण्येवाधिकारसे मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफल हेतुर्भुर्मा te sangotswara karmani. Now, what does this mean? The staff of Taj focused 100% on the process of safety. They kept their priorities, their religious beliefs, what they had been conditioned for right from childhood. They kept that away and they focused on the current process. That is the process of ensuring that each of the Taj customers or each person present over there is taken to safety. So they combined the effort. Of course, they were all nervous, but in that nervousness, when they are very clearly conditioned as to what is most important. And over here, as you can see, what was most important was focused execution. During the crisis, while they were nervous, they focused on the process. They were not paralyzed by the cost of what will happen to me, what if I die, or what if the terrorist just comes and faces us. They removed all those thoughts away and they calmly as could be possible, they try to lead the guests through the dark, dangerous corridors with firm hands. Now, over here, if you see what is the lesson over here? In crisis, obviously, the action is very intense. So in that time, any attachment to any personal costs is going to lead to huge losses. So therefore, the staff focused 100% on the quality of the work. That is, currently they were working on evacuation of the people. They did not focus on the scorecard of what the outcome would be. They tried to focus or remove the anxiety. The way last session we spoke about how for an actor it is important to become a spectator. So in this case, they removed themselves from the acting and instead tried to become spectator. That way they could decouple their anxiety, and because of which they were able to lead the guests with steady hands. Of course, the moment one becomes nervous, there's a loss of energy. So by removing the nervousness away, by becoming a spectator, the energy leak is stopped, because of which the mind becomes steady and eventually it leads to the conservation of power. So even an ordinary person could become an extraordinary individual. So it's always important that you focus on the process. When your mind is not working, when you're not sure what is going to happen, just focus on the process.
Now it's time to consider our situation, which is not in our hands. The last shloka is one of the most popular shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, Karmandivadikaraste. Right from our childhood, we have heard it from our parents, then as a professional, as a student, and then as a professional. This is something we always go back and try to focus on our karmas, focus on our actions. We cannot be at peace. We cannot say, okay, Krishna said we have to be at peace, we have to be balanced, so we have to be balanced. Is it so simple? It's not. So by focusing on karma, as Dr. Sandhya rightly said. So now we move on to the next shloka from Bhagavad Gita 2.70, which also puts an end to chapter 2 of the scripture, which is a metaphor we can use, ocean-like stability here. It reads, Apurya mana machilla pratishtham samudra vapa pravishanti yuddhata tadat kamaya pravishanti sarve sa shanti ma proti na kama kami. So if we see few words, we find Samudra is there, we see Shanti is there, we see Sarve is there. Sarve is again in English, Sarve is there. So Sarve is for all, which means. So just as rivers continuously flow into the ocean, yet the oceans remain steady and undisturbed. So it is comparing ocean to a person. It is personifying the ocean and saying a person into whom desires enter, problems enter, but who remains unaffected attains peace, not the one who chases desires. Like when our day starts, It starts with a to-do list. We have to do anything which we have categorized as list A, B, C, and even D. We get stuck on the list A, but and we leave aside the elements of list D because they are trivial, unimportant, but all have to be done. So we don't have to chase the desire. We just have to be focused from inside. Krishna compares a wise person to the ocean. Ocean versus mind. If we see it this way, ocean receives thousands of rivers, yet remain full, steady, unmoving. An ordinary mind. One small desire, disturbance, one small expectation, stress. Krishna is not saying don't have desires. He's saying don't be disturbed by them. When we think, when I fulfill my desire, when I'll pass my CA exam, I'll be peaceful. And all the chartered accountants in the group can easily witness, are we at peace after qualifying CA? After getting job in a brand like Taj, even the employees there would have partied the day they got their offer letter that they have been selected by Taj, that to Taj Hotel, Kolaba, Mumbai. But were they prepared for 2611? There were many who were celebrating their 25th anniversary, their 50th birthday, their 50th anniversary, or maybe they never knew that they went there to dine and they won't return back. It is such a this is something which we take for granted when we leave home and we think every we are going to see the next day. But is it sure? It wasn't sure for them as well. One desire is fulfilled, another arises. So this is an endless cycle. So in order to peace, the peace doesn't come from fulfilling desires. It comes from not being controlled by them. If we if we connect this to the spectator connection, we find that desire arises in the mind. But again, the self, the observer, remains unaffected, unchanged. Next time a desire or a problem arises, instead of immediately reacting, is this desire controlling me or am I observing it? We are going to have an activity soon after this, which will direct you to three different scenarios of three different mindsets of people use. Peace is not when desires end, peace is when desires stop disturbing you. You can always see, like if I combine these two shlokas, 2.3 and just I just took, and this 2.70, in the first one, we discussed that life will always bring opposites. It's the nature of life. Coin has two sides. Day and night is a combination of a day. And the mind will always generate desires. So it is up to us. Do we want to be at peace or do we give this expectation to us that only when this achievement is done, then only I'll be peace. I'll be happy when this is done. But if we can accept this, if we are happy, we are going to be successful. So over to next slide. I invite CA Pallavi, Sanjog, and Komal for the activity, which I just mentioned.
We are going to die. Did you hear those grenades? The system has failed us. Why aren't the commandos here? I have a family. I can't breathe. I'm going to run. I'm for the service exit. If I stay here, I'm just going to be tired. Everything is dark. I see only misfortune ahead.
What's the point? If they come in here, they come in. There's nothing we can do. The elevators are dead. The phones are dead. Let's just sit here and wait at the end. Don't bother trying to move anything. Anyway, we are powerless. We are helpless.
Listen to me. The panic in this room is a variable. We cannot control Sanjog. You have a right to your action, not the outcome. Put the phone away and help me move these tables against the door. Pallavi, you're wrong. We are not powerless. We are the ocean. The noise outside is just a river. Do not let it overflow this room. We are not leaving. We are creating a fortress of will right here. Focus on the next 60 seconds. One breath, one guest, one barricade at a time. We stay steady until the last one is safe. Remember, guest is God.
So you have just witnessed the three participants. The first participant was riding the tiger of fear. As you can see, when someone is scared, how do we behave? Our senses refuse to work, just like Arjun. The second participant was drowned in the puddle of inaction. When you are faced with a problem, you sometimes lose so much of consciousness around yourself that you just can't find out what to start with. And since you cannot find out what to start with, there is plenty of inaction, which further depletes the situation. Well, then the participant third. And what was the third participant representing? it was the ocean. And in your career, when your Taj moment hits, when the market crashes, or your biggest client leaves, the participant that takes over you, who is that? Who is the one that you become? Who is the one that you should become and be the invincible one?
We just saw a situation, the same situation, how three different people reacted. And we heard the summary that Ritu gave.
The third speaker was supposed to be the one who is a strategic architect, who has a steady core. If the third performer in that activity would not have maintained a strategic silence, would not have been able to drown the external noise, and would not have been assertive enough, see how the effect would be.
Listen to me. The panic in this room is a variable you can control. You have a right to action, not the outcome. Put the phone away and help me to move the way that Pallavi, you are wrong. We are not powerless. We are the ocean. The noise outside is just a river. Don't let it overflow this room. We are not leaving. We are creating a fortress of will right here. Focus on the next 60 seconds. One step, one guest, one very important night. We stay steady until the last guest is up. Say.
The third participant, the ocean, represented the highest level of mental mastery. What we just saw was the participant was not able to dim the external voice. The third participant was required to be firmly established. The third participant was supposed to serve as an anchor for the entire team so that the team does not drift, also called as the ocean, was supposed to prevent the rest of the organization from drifting away. And when we have the third participant as the ocean, just see what happens.
कोई भी जाना चाहता है वो जा सकता है। मैं 35 साल से यहाँ हूँ सर, यही मेरा घर है सर। Case is God सर।
In that scenario, or in any scenario of crisis, be it a terror attack, be it the market crashing, be it conflict happening across the board, these conflicts, these moments of arguments, these moments of crisis are like the river, the tumultuous river which is getting into the ocean. And if you see, the ocean is largely undisturbed. So eventually what happens is, even however the river may be flowing, eventually it has to calm down. So it's essential that a person, even in crisis, practices calmness. We say, fake it till you make it. But this proves that fake it till you become it. Yes, even they were average citizens who, when they were facing the terror attack, there were many thoughts that were coming in their mind. But they tried to keep their mind like that ocean, which was undisturbed. Eventually, they were able to do their duty, not just to the best of their potential, but they went beyond everybody's expectations. So Achala Pratishtham is basically establish your mind firmly. Any trouble can create a splash, but when we become that ocean, eventually even that splash calms itself. Next, generally, a reactive mind where a person is reacting to crisis, reacting to stress, or when a person is anxious, such a mind has 30% or less clarity. And with this little clarity, one can definitely not work to the best of one's potential. Intelligence requires one to have 95% clarity. And when you behave like the ocean, what happens? Even scientifically, when you try to fight the chaos and become like the ocean, eventually the logic does not shut down as in a reactive mind. You're able to perform with much more calmness, and you don't have, like in the last session we talked about, in crisis we cannot try to meet our expectations. We are always below our expectations. So when we just continue to focus on the process, that is how we can continue to move ahead in crisis. So here we talk about the 3-step reset, the technical audit. Whenever in crisis, if we follow these 3 steps, we would definitely be able to get much better results. First of all, we need to detach ourselves from an event. When we spoke about becoming a spectator, stop being an actor. That doesn't mean that you do not practice acting at all. Of course, you have to act to the best of your ability. But eventually, you have to remove that I from the event, become a spectator. whether it is an audit or whether it is the terror attack, when those employees, they stop thinking about themselves as being a part of the crisis, that is when they were able to analyze. They were able to analyze that, yes, the terror attack has happened, but still they are alive. And all those guests who are still alive, so they still have the control in their hands. Yes, the external variables were that they were terrorists over there. They were trying to find them, and whoever was coming in their sight, they were shooting them ruthlessly. So that emotional drama was there. But when they have removed the eye, they were able to look at the situation as a spectator, and they were able to understand where they need to focus. They had been already trained on the process as to how, in case of crisis, what are the things they should do one by one. So once the mind clarity was restored, they were able to get back to the process systematically and go to the third mode, that is the execution, as to what would be the next intelligent move. Once they had taken the panic away and they were able to analyze the data, they were able to execute the actions systematically. And what happened later on was for everybody to see. So as you can see, whatever be the situation, it's important that we find our own anchor, whether it is markets crashing, whether it is technology disrupting. Today itself is an example where each of us, we are having our own challenges, but yet we are continuing. We have Ritu, who is right now facing a technical crisis. Each of us is having our own challenge. We have Komal, who is out there, yet we are continuing. So in conflict, there will always be conflicts in life. But it's important that if you realize that, or you make yourself the anchor, automatically the team will not drift. Your internal core will help you in finding your anchor. Your internal core will help you in making you feel ultimately secure. And that is what will help you achieve your mental equilibrium. Even in case of crisis, it's absolutely important to take yourself out of that crisis. You cannot physically take yourself out of crisis, but you can definitely condition your mind, compartmentalize your mind to understand that when there is crisis, how to not focus on what is not within your hands and go focus on what is still left and then continue. That is how you can proceed to the best of your ability. So I think that is what we had to talk on this topic. Building the steady core, whether for your organization or whether for yourself. When you focus on within, what will happen is you eventually will transform yourself from reactive chaos to becoming that strategic architect of your life and of the situation that you are in, which will eventually help yourself and the people around you face the crisis in a much better way. So the stage is for everybody, all those people who have joined us, Rupa ma'am, Debbie. But yes, we are definitely waiting for any questions, any queries.
Can we have a quick recap of what we just went through in this session today, if possible?
Okay. What we were trying to do is, when we try to speak about finding your mental equilibrium. Now, we discussed the case of Taj. In Taj, when there was a sudden terror attack, as Meenakshi rightly said, we had people, they had people who had come to celebrate their birthdays, their anniversaries. There were friends coming together. There were people they were international guests. In fact, there were people who were not aware of what is going to happen. They had their plans lined up for the day. They had their families, their friends waiting for them. And then suddenly these terrorists who had been there for so long, so suddenly they open attack. And at such times, when the employees themselves were facing a crisis of survival, they kept away their own priorities. They, though they were actors in that scenario, as we had discussed in the last video, they removed themselves from, or they transformed themselves from being an actor to a spectator. Because when you're a spectator, you're able to have a much larger view. And then they focused on the process as to how, because for Taj, every employee for Taj is conditioned that guest is God. Once they focused on the conditioning that guest is God, they were able to prioritize that, yes, whatever may be happening outside, yes, there are terrorists running around and they're trying to shoot anybody who comes in front. But what is in our control right now? In our control, we still have some of the process that we have been trained with. There are still customers who are alive. So how do we go about trying to save or salvage whatever we can? So that is what I had summed up in my last slide, the 3-step as to how you go about detaching yourself. You go about detaching yourself from the situation. Then once you detach the emotions away, you're able to analyze, and then you're able to execute in a much better way. So that is what we did. Debbie.
Yeah, this is awesome. It's very nice. So I would like to add something. So when faced with a situation wherein your anxiety, your cortisol levels spike, instead of reacting, you focus on responding. So if a person is, so basically, say for instance, I will just take an example to explain you what the point that I want to put across to all of you. So suppose if there is a person XYZ in front of you and he or she is yelling at the top of voice and trying to make her point, like, upset with you. You've not sort of met her or his expectations in a particular event. What will you do? You just need to observe that person. So there are two options in front of you. On the left is react, onto your right is respond. You have to take the route of respond and not react. But even before you respond, between react and respond, so this is the process. I'll explain the process flow to you. So according to me, the human psyche is what you say, it's designed in such a way that he or she is a person is tempted to react, but you need to hold yourself back. You need to pull yourself back, and you need to alert your brain and tell your brain, do self-talk and say, you don't have to react. You have to respond to the situation, to the person in the situation that you're faced with.
Debbie, I'm going to interrupt you here. Actually, the human psyche is not conditioned to react. If you see a small child, when certain things are happening, the child just watches calmly. But what happens is, over the years, we see the next step that is happening as a spectator. And then our mind gets conditioned that, okay, now this has happened. Now the next step would be this. The next step would be this. Because we are thinking of that next step. And that's how we tend to proactively react. That's why children, the innocent children, are able to react to a situation much better. They don't have that fear in their mind. What has happened is, over years of seeing things happening to others, our mind gets conditioned with the fear. Our mind gets conditioned with the excitement, all those emotions, and we start preempting. So that is what is mental equilibrium. Mental equilibrium is...
Yeah.
You understand?
Please go on.
So mental equilibrium
you're trying to say, sort of, safeguard ourselves by going through the experience of fears. We learn to say, and then that becomes our defense mechanism, that we get into that reactive mode. Right.
Yes.
Beautifully explained. Thank you. Yeah. So I want to add
something. I would like to add something what she said just now. Devi ma'am just said that when person is shouting on the top of his voice and tries to control our emotions. To this, I would like to say that over a period of time, like as a child, things hardly matter that do we have expensive clothes, we have expensive toys, or the places we live, is it very luxurious, or is it just a hut? Children are not affected by where they are living, how they are treated, but they only want to be treated well, to be treated joyfully. So over a period of time, like as we grow from the child to the adulthood and then the old age and all that, we find that the endurance level reduces. And because of this endurance level that has reduced within us, we feel it. And in one of my sessions, I narrated one of the Gujarati poems, like, O chinti koi mane raste meline puche kem che. હું કીધું તેને મારે અંદર દરિયાસી મોજ છે, ઉપર से કુદરતની રેમ છે. So it's all about how you perceive yourself from inside. You are not the body, you are not the mind, but you are the soul. And our scripture Bhagavad Gita directs us step by step, shloka by shloka, chapter by chapter, to this one thing. Before we get that Virat Darshan, that all resides inside us. But when we accept that the situation and we feel that even the ocean has many reasons to remain disturbed, remain ambiguous, remain perplexed, but it chooses to remain calm. Even his taste is sour, his taste is salty, but he is accepting each and everything. And one who does deep diving into it, he finds that is beautiful inside. The view inside is so beautiful. Just a comparison to it. Thank you.
Beautifully put across, Meenakshi. Thank you so much.
Just to add to it what Meenakshi said, accept the reality that life is not so easy, and you have to be strong to sail off the ocean. Just to add.
Pallavi.
And so,
Rupa,
Dr.
ma'am.
Sajjan,
Yes.
I wanted to add something. Can I?
Yeah, sure.
So now that we're talking about adults, so great. You brought all of us to a great realization that this is not uh, originally our make. Our original make is that we are not designed to react by the Almighty. Okay, great. So I take it from there. So now, but since because the way we are mentally conditioned as an adult, so we get into the reactive mode. So now, as I was explaining the process flow, so we have two options in front of us, either to react or to respond. So, but between react and respond, so you've taken a decision, you're not going to react, and now you want to move to respond, but you don't immediately go on to respond. There is one more action that you need to take in between, is that is pause.
Yes.
So hear the person out, pause. So tell yourself, do a little self-talk. At this moment, pause. After the person is done talking, pause for a moment, think, and then respond, is the point I was trying to make.
Yes, true.
So that
Like, for example,
that pause button is very important. Very important.
Yes.
before you can even respond.
Now just imagine there's a fight going on. Okay, what happens is the natural reaction of the body is when somebody's arguing, we tend to also get hyper and we react. But if we just calm down, just listen, and we react in a calm way, what happens is it's not that we are accepting defeat, but it's a way of letting that person feel that we are hearing, and it also helps us to collect our thoughts and react in a positive way. So eventually what happens is everybody just calms down.
Ma'am, let us not use the word react. Let us use the word respond, if you don't mind.
Always.
Yes.
Thumbs up
Thank
to
you.
Devi ma'am today.
Yes, true.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sure. Rupa ma'am, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Much
Yes.
as we discussed about adult behavior and all that, I've been through a situation very similar to the Taj kind of thing. But then I was very young at that time. And I don't know whether I thought about this process and responded, but I did manage to do quite a lot of things which you kind of now explained, help people escape, help people to safety. Now, I cannot remember exactly what I thought at that time. I think sometimes people just get into action without thinking whether this is, whether I should do it this way or what will happen to me. Because I was in a situation where my father was missing, my mother was heartbroken, my older sister was in a panic. I mean, she had a serious panic attack at that moment. She kept saying, I don't know, we will all die, we will all die. I mean, she kept mentioning that as a mantra. But I was able to do some of these things. I was able to save about 20, 25 people, and I was able to do something like that. So while you were recounting the Taj thing, I was wondering, did I really think about all this? Did I say, oh, okay, now, because even though I am likely to die myself, should I do this, or am I overcoming the fear? So what learning can we take from that? That is it really a reaction? Because I don't think I responded. I actually reacted. That's what I feel.
Okay, very, very good example, Rupa ma'am. What happens is each of us is differently conditioned. And each of us there are certain things we are born with. There is certain maturity that we are born with as a result of our past. And there is certain level of maturity which each of us tries to achieve in the current life. So you were possibly conditioned where your reaction was equal to the response that Debbie was referring to. Got it? So certain people have to work you can work on your reactions to respond in the positive way, but there are some people who automatically react in the manner that it is supposed to happen. So each of us reacts or responds depending upon the level of maturity that we have. And that is what we were all trying to say, that yes, it is possible to work on your response so that eventually that response becomes your default reaction.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I take that. Yes.
Yes. Anybody else would like to add something? Because we are on our meeting.
See, it's very easy to preach. It becomes easier to preach others. But when the real life situation comes, things happen on the basis of what we have inculcated in ourselves as a habit. By hearing to the experience that Rupa ma'am had in her young age, like this is an experience. To that I say that preaching is much easier than experiencing it. When you experience how you respond, how you react, it depends on what all you have inculcated inside your mind, what all things you have practiced over a period of time, and that response or reaction has to come. So the learning will be this from our session today is
yes. Oh, sorry, continue.
To what Rupa ma'am just said on experiencing it in the real life, the situation like what we showed in the session today, Taj Hotel Crisis 2611. To that I say preaching is much easier than experiencing a panic state in real life. And how a normal mind reacts or responds depends on what he has inculcated as a habit over a period of time. What a person has practiced over a period of time, that way the person responds to a situation. So, in order to say what is the takeaway from this session, I could say that to understand the life is always two sides of the same coin. You cannot have only good all throughout your life, or only worse things throughout the life. This is the combination. And if we have the peace like of an ocean, we also have to have gratitude. And when we have the combination of both calmness in mind and gratitude in heart, we find that we come out with flying colors. Whatever the situation is, even if the outcome is worst, but we will not retrospect and repent on it that we were there, and being there, then also we could not act. We will never have the feeling of guilty if we are having these two in our hands. Thank you.
True, absolutely true. I think, Debbie, that should have answered your questions. Pallavi, would you like to add anything? Because I think today's
So
session was from the heart.
Yes, what
Yeah, I would
Meenakshi,
like to. Oh, sorry. Please go on. Yeah,
what
I
Meenakshi
will add
ji said,
later.
to add one
Please.
sentence to it, doesn't matter whether your step is big or small. It just matters that your intention to help others, your intention to be strong enough, and your little step to motivate others have a greater impact.
Yeah.
So please don't think that your effort, because just a small story to add in, there was a fire in a jungle, and the small bird was putting one drop of water in a peak, just a drop of water. Other people said, how foolish you are, you're just adding one drop of water. Uh, how would it help to set off the fire? And you can burn yourself. Then the bird said, It's just like that, whether I have to be spectator and looking like all other people and be at that side, or I want to be in the side where the people are rescuing and helping the world to be a better place. So just analyze
You have to
yourself.
choose your stance, which side of the
Yes.
wall you are standing.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So we have to be strong enough and choose our stand where we are standing. So even a small action matters. That's all.
Very true. Very true. Wonderful
Thank
share,
you.
Rupa ma'am. Wonderful share, Meenakshi. Thank you, Debbie, for joining. And Pallavi, thank you for being a part of the activity. So let's hope
Thank you,
to
Sandhya,
continue.
for
Yes.
encouraging all of
Thank you,
us.
Sandhya.
That is
Yeah.
the most
Absolutely.
important.
Debbie,
And
ma'am, you raised a very good question.
Yes.
Question answer session is meant for you. You join every session.
Yes. And Debbie,
Thank
that
you.
point that you made, the point of reaction and response, thank you. Because now every time I am going to be careful with using the word, and I'm going to remember you.
Sorry.
Good one.
I'm going to remember you every time I use the word react and respond.
Yes. I mean, it's. I think I take it upon me as my personal responsibility for each one of you that you actually shift permanently from react to respond in life ahead.
Yes.
I would love to do that.
And Debbie, ma'am, one
yeah.
suggestion: never say
Yes.
I am unwell. Say my body is unwell.
Exactly. I was going to tell her
Thank
that in
you.
person.
But
I was going to tell
I've
her
been
that in
so.
person. No,
But
Debbie,
on a
from next call, from
on a
next
serious
meeting,
note,
I want you to now learn to react so that you respond. You come, you be prepared for the meeting. Get up a few minutes in advance and be prepared for the meeting.
So I would like to tell you the matter of fact is I have been unwell after ages. I don't. Coming to the point, I would like to add, Meenakshi here is we are talking about a real life situation, so it is a little hard for me to believe. Like Pallavi took a very good, and that is something that was playing on my mind also. So I was going to give the example. If I see fire in front of me, are you serious when you say that whatever is the habit, whatever you're habituated to, you are going to necessarily respond as per what your brain and body and mind is attuned to for all these years? It's a fire. I think the habit could also go haywire. The reaction. Okay, I'm using the word reaction now here because it is like a life-threatening calamity, like a contingency that you're faced with. So when it's a fire, you could actually lose yourself as a person. And I think Rupa ma'am would be in the best position. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to get very personal. I know that those emotions would come to the fore if I have to tell you to cite your experience. But could you just tell us in brief as to how you responded and what was the calamity that you were faced with, if you don't mind? That is, I don't
I
insist.
certainly don't mind, because every time I recount it, I find that I'm learning something about myself or the dynamics of the situation. It was in 1979, the flash floods of Morbi. We were in Morbi. The thing is, normally in floods, what happens is the water rises slowly. So you have a chance to do something about it. But these were flash floods. The dam broke. So water rushed in with so much of force. It flattened houses. 10,000 people lost their lives. We were slightly on the outskirts of the city. So I think we were hit later by the water than the people closer towards the dam. And when the water came in, there were lots of people, there was bodies, there were crocodiles, there were snakes, all which came in the water. It turned out that at that time in my building, I was the only one, and I was 15, and I was the only one who knew swimming. So I would jump into the water, pick up whoever was kicking about, assuming that they were alive, and I would bring them to the building, carry them 3 flights of stairs because my house was on the 3rd floor, and I wasn't too sure how much the water would rise. Water came up to the 2nd floor. So about 17 people we saved that day. Most of them I didn't know. Only one person I knew because he was an employee of my father's company. We did that, and I mean, I can tell you many stories, but just the gist of it is that we were able to
What
save
about
these
your
people.
dad, Rupa ma'am? What about your dad?
My father had gone to Ahmedabad. He called to say that he was leaving. At that time, there was no mobile. So he called on the landline saying, I'm leaving Ahmedabad now, and it takes about 4 hours to get there. And before the end of 4 hours, we knew that he was on the way, and he didn't come home. He didn't come home till 2 days after. My mother was heartbroken. She was only worried about my father being missing. My older sister, 3 years older to me, she was a very delicate or sensitive girl. And all she could say is, we are going to die, we are going to die. And that's all she kept repeating as a mantra. Maybe that was her comfort. I don't know. She would cry and she would repeat this. So why did it happen that only I won't say courageous, I was the reactive one. I brought all these people up there, and then I told my mother to make some chapatis for them. And we exhausted all the food that we had all the grain that we had in the house. Because, 17, 20 people had to be fed.
Wonderful
so we did
reaction. Wonderful.
Yeah, and it was very interesting. And when I think about it, the following couple of days, we got a lot of help. Mother Teresa came. She came personally with her Sisters of Charity to help with the disaster. She stayed at our place. At our place, meaning not in my house, but we had an apartment which was empty. So we housed all the people who had come for relief work over there. And at that time, I was not overwhelmed that I met her. Only after she left, I realized that, she's gone, and she was, Mother Teresa. So many times what happens when you are reacting, all that you are doing is just taking care of the situation right then. I did not get overwhelmed by the fact that it was Mother Teresa who I was guiding, taking to the city, trying to do some help. We did a lot of burning of bodies because there was no way to help people. I must have personally burned some 30, 40 bodies. And every day to come home, and my mother being a Orthodox South Indian Brahmin person, girls not to do these kind of things, So all that was there. So there was a lot of reaction of every kind, and somehow it seemed to me that I was doing the right thing. So yes, after about 20 days, that's when I realized what a big thing had happened. Till then, go over there, save somebody, do something, give them something, or guide them to some place. So those kind of things. And I couldn't imagine that today, if anyone tells me you should do this because you've done it before, I don't think I can. That's when I realized the power of adrenaline. Adrenaline will give you the ability to do physically those acts which you cannot ever imagine. I carried 4 men on my shoulder when I was 15 years old, and all those people were certainly twice my age, if not thrice.
Unbelievable.
So
Beautiful.
So there was a time when I had to go from one building to another, and the doors were locked. So I put a ladder from one parapet to another parapet, walked across. If you ask me to do it now, I'll die. I'm saying is, that is what we have to realize, that we all within ourselves have so much power.
Yes.
We have it.
So Meenakshi, yeah. After you, Sandhya ma'am, yeah.
Yeah. Can I talk about, because after Rupa ma'am has said, I remember an incident. It has actually shaken me to the core. What happened is in 2020 during the COVID, my dad was in the hospital for 13 days. We eventually shifted him to another hospital, and one of the reasons for shifting him to the hospital was the insurance person over there had said that you will be able to come and meet your dad. In the first hospital, we were not able to meet him. So I was under the impression that, okay, next day I would go and meet him. And at around 12:30, I said that I want to meet him. So he said, look, ma'am, I'm there only for the next 5-10 minutes. If you want, you have to rush immediately, or you can meet him tomorrow. What I did was, in that fraction, I said, okay, I am coming. I had a 5-year-old son. I just quickly dragged him out of the house. I dropped him at my uncle's place, and I rushed to the hospital. I put the kit, whatever I had to put, and I went and visited my dad. My dad he was already, all the pipes and everything was there. I went and met him in the ICU. He was no longer what I had seen before, but he was happy, excited, but he was also nervous, and he was asking me, he was writing and asking me when I'm going to come home. I said, it will happen. Now you're at least closer to home. Eventually what happened is, during the day, his condition worsened, and it so happened that by evening he was on ventilator, after which he never recovered. And then we lost him in some days. I just realized that had I not taken that decision instantaneously, that, okay, I am just going to rush. I literally dragged my son out. I kept him in my uncle's place, and I rushed to see my dad in the ICU. So I would have missed the opportunity to meet him. Those few moments, because he was desperate to meet me and my son. And not only that, on the video call, I ensured that he spoke to his best friend. On the video call, I ensured that he spoke to his younger brother. He saw his grandson. And then he asked me that about my brother. I don't know, it just came out of my mouth. So it was possibly something that God signaled him. My brother was in UK, so he was like, when is Sachin going to come? So it just came out that, Papa, whoever is here now, this is your family. So I don't know, it was not me consciously saying it. So it was, true. I think that is what the signal that God gave to him. Because after that, while I tried to calm him down, but looks like later on his breathing was much more difficult, and then the doctors put him on ventilator. So it was.
So I would,
Yes.
it's very touching, Sandhya ma'am. And in continuation to what you're saying, I would like to cite an experience of my uncle. Okay, in fact, not my uncle, one of my husband's relative, but I consider him as my uncle as well. So my uncle, so he lives with his family in the US, and we used to take care of his parents here in India. His parents have passed away now. So we were all on our trip somewhere in India, within India, and he was visiting from the US, and he was also with our family. Primarily, we were taking care of his parents. He had old parents, and he was just visiting from the US. Now, what happened is that we went in that minivan, and it so happened that his father, when he went to open the door, he fell in a ditch when we were just about to proceed to some place. Yeah. Okay, his father is like a big dietitian, like a top-notch doctor. This person is a research scientist in the US, and so we had to hold him, lift him. We got him out of the ditch, and we put him on a chair, and he had lost consciousness for some time. So we brought him back. Now this minivan was standing, and our entire group was around his father, his old father, who was just recouping from the accident. What this uncle, my husband's uncle, did was, we were all around him. We were trying to regain consciousness within him and all. He quietly, after a point, I tried to look. I could not see this uncle of my husband. What he had done is he quietly slipped away from the crowd, and he went and sat quietly at the back of the minivan. And I was surprised. I was looking at his father. I was looking at that uncle, and he was just quietly, coyly shy, like coyly in a coy state. He was just sitting in the minivan.
Maybe we can't hear you.
And then, yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was completely surprised. After the incident, then his father regained consciousness, everything settled, and we enjoyed the rest of the picnic, the trip. I silently went and I spoke to this uncle of my husband and asked him, Kaka, I used to call him Kaka. I was like, Kaka, everybody, all of us, we were around your dad. What made you actually slip away from the episode, from the situation, and go and sit there? Didn't you feel like being around your dad? What would your dad have thought, that my son is there, but he's not around me, he's not with me, not holding my hand at that moment, in that moment? So you know what he told me, Devashri? Hear this. You might feel weird when I tell you this, but hear this. Tomorrow, when I'm going to be in the US, if something happens to either my father or my mother, okay, I know that I'm not going to be able to take a flight and be there at that very moment. Suppose if they have only so much time left, and in that time, I'm not able to reach from the US to be with him, with my father or my mother, who is going to be with there in that moment? You people. So I wanted him to get used to the idea that tomorrow, if something happens, it is not me who's going to be with you. Maybe I will be there. Maybe I won't be able to be there with you. But this is your family who are living with you now, and who will be with you. So I want you to get used to this from this very moment. Now that this incident has happened to you, I want you to, he spoke to his parents, he spoke to his father and mother, and they were 80 plus, okay? I mean, almost nearing 80 at that point when he spoke to them, and he got them used. Then years later, when his mother passed away, his mother was in the hospital and all of us were around her. And she was waiting and she was asking each one of us, when is Nikhil coming? When is Nikhil coming? Her eyes wanted to see him before she passed away, before she took her last breath. We could see the intensity. And he didn't come until the last minute or moment. She passed away without seeing him. Then I sort of remembered the story that. So I don't know. I'm not a best judge of whether what he did, what he told his parents, what he mentored his parents, what he wanted to get his parents habituated to, it was the right thing or the wrong thing. But what you said now, Sandhya ma'am, I'm reminded of that event and situation, what you told your dad then, that Papa, Baba, Papa, whatever you call him, that we are your, whoever you see here now, we are your family.
Yeah.
When he was asking about your brother. And I think it's easier that way. I will put it, I don't know whether this is right or wrong, but the word is easy. The word, it's easier that way.
Debbie, when I look back at that moment, it was not me saying it. I don't know how it just came. And then I still remember his reaction.
Sandhya ma'am. Yeah.
It was.
Do you know why it came? Do you know why it came, Sandhya ma'am? So I'm trying to link your experience with your dad and my experience with my uncle and his dad. So, and then when you talked about, so it's the divine's message.
Yes,
so let us enlighten through your experience. Let us enlighten everyone here in this group now. So it's the divine wanted. So maybe the divine came to my uncle at that point. Maybe the divine came to you when it was your dad's turn. And now let us learn from the experience of you and my uncle that the divine wants us. So today now I will come to my experience. Okay. Today at this point, I don't see my husband. I don't see my daughter every day. But who is around me? My mother is around me. And a couple of you who are not my blood, who are not my family, who are not my relations. They're nobody, but today I call them my family because they have assumed the role of family in my life. So tomorrow, God forbid, but tomorrow, if whatever happens to me, maybe my husband and my daughter, God forbid, again, I'm using the word God forbid. This is not easy for me, extremely difficult for just anybody. But tomorrow, say, let us assume that my husband or my daughter cannot be around me when I take my last breath. But I know from this point, I'm going to mentor myself because the divine has spoken to me through Sandhya ma'am's experience and my uncle's experience that tomorrow, whoever I see at that point when I take my last breath, that they are going to be my true family. And this has made me strong in this very moment. Thank you, Sandhya ma'am, for citing your experience. And thank you, Rupa ma'am, for citing this experience because yes, you explained to us the power of adrenaline. And coming back to Meenakshi, now that he says that when the point at which I started, that when you see a fire, you may go haywire because it's the divine who comes at that point. It's not the habit that you're carrying, but it's what the divine wants you to do, how the divine wants you to react and respond, and you get that strength. So finally, the power of adrenaline, or whatever you say, the message that Sandhya ma'am got, let us all thank him. He is that force, and wish we could spread out to the world and across humanity. When they talk, I feel angry, I feel infurious. I feel absolutely angry is the word I want to use. We create our own destiny, the might and the confidence and the ego. I'm using the word ego with which they say we create our own destiny. Are murkh, tu kya jane? There is that one supernatural power which you will have to bow down finally.
But you know what, Debbie, I considering both of you have shared your parents' situation or parent-like situation, sometimes I wonder whether we give up too easily. My father had a heart attack at home. I recognized it and took him immediately to the hospital, even though it was 12 in the night. A journey which takes normally, even with no traffic, which takes about 20 minutes, I covered in 7. We went there. The doctors at the emergency said, sorry, he's dead. I said, no, get the crash card, do the CPR. I pulled the crash card and began CPR. We did CPR for half an hour. We got him back. We got him back. And he lived very well for one entire year after that.
Very correct, Rupa ma'am. I always, I always tell everyone, I did not lose my dad to COVID. I lost it because he lost the battle in his mind. Where people could not get 1 plasma, I managed to get 4 plasma. I was fighting for him. I was doing everything possible, but he lost it. So even if externally anybody, you helped your dad, but believe me, it was not you. It was your dad fighting. It was your dad fighting internally. He wanted to fight back. You assisted him. You were the means.
I was just facilitating the whole thing.
Yes.
Even then, okay, but sometimes I feel we give up. We say, oh, he's not, this one or this. We should
So,
not.
Rupa ma'am,
We should do
what do you
our
think happened in that moment to you? One question from my end. What
all,
in that very
all I
moment?
knew,
What do you
all I
think?
knew is that I am not going to let him die. That was my biggest thing. I'm my daddy's girl. Okay, from babyhood, you know how we all do really,
Yes,
you
yes.
know, dote on our fathers and all that. So I just thought I shouldn't let him die. By
No,
the way, he
Rupa ma'am,
ultimately,
even
the
I used to
following
think.
year, he died in my arms. That is different.
Yes, that is
But
what.
that time I had the peace. I knew, somehow I knew that it was over.
Yes, yes.
So in the morning at 6 o'clock, he said, Rupa, and before I could say anything, he just collapsed. I held him, he died. But somehow I was peaceful. I knew that time that I don't need
Yes.
to do anything.
No, you
So
knew
the
that
divine
time,
prepared
Rupa
you.
ma'am.
The
You
divine.
you knew that time that you had done everything possible. You know, when I lost my dad, not in one moment did I think that my dad would not come back. And I cried. I cried for many days. But then later on, I mean, today when I'm discussing this incident, I'm not crying because I came to peace with myself. I realized that I did whatever I could. Beyond that, it was not in my hands. So when
Yeah,
you
true.
do whatever you can, that is that state when you are relaxed.
And you are at peace.
Yes.
See,
And
that is what gave me the peace. I knew
Yes.
the second time that I was not required to do anything. It was over.
Yes.
And my mother said, no, let's go to the hospital. So I said, okay,
But
fine, let's go to the hospital. He was declared dead
Rupa
on
ma'am,
arrival. And I knew that.
when
But
did you
I
know
did,
that it was over? In the morning when he told you 6:30 when he complained of
yeah,
discomfort, or
within, at 6:32, he was gone. So he just said it and he collapsed on the bed with his head on my lap. He just died. I knew that he was done. I knew that he's dead now. But somehow I didn't feel the panic. I didn't feel the pain. I knew that he's dead. That's all. Somehow everything else was peaceful.
yeah. So
Anyway,
Sandhya
I
ma'am,
think we can
I
call it
think
a day because I have to run off
Yes,
to the
yes,
temple.
yes.
By the way, the
Wonderful
very same father.
wonderful sharing by all. I think this should be a point where we have to end the meeting because the time is also
Yeah.
ending for
Yeah.
the meeting.
And
So
today we are in the temple. They are honoring my father, so that's where I'm going.
okay,
oh
thank you
wow,
so
wow.
much.
So we all
Thank you
bow down
so
to your
much.
father, and
Yeah,
we
thank
all
you.
bow
Yes.
down to you for the way you've shown strength and might at the tender age of 15. And this experience of you stays with us, and it's going to give all of us courage to face
Thank you.
whatever life has to throw at us tomorrow.
Every share makes us a better person,
Yes.
both while
Yes.
receiving and while giving.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
let's
Thank you so much, everyone.
yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Sandhya ma'am, for extending the meeting and giving us all a chance. And it was this was needed. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you,
Thank you
Sanjog,
so
for
much.
cooperating with us
Thank you,
and
Sanjog.
joining
Thank
back.
you, Pallavi
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you all. Thank you so
Thank you,
much. Have a
Pallavi ma'am.
wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone,
Bye.
and wish you all a very happy Sunday.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.